Hey everybody, Cathy McLeish here, and we're doing Alcoholism Unpacked, sharing a little bit about alcoholism, how it affects us before we get sober, after we get sober, and everything in between. So today I'm going to do something a little different. I'm 27, I'm in my first recovery meeting, and I'm listening to everybody, and they're talking personal stuff, talking about how they drank, how they quit, what they think about their life now, what they think about their life then. And they're talking about stories of being sober for 6 months, 6 years, 10 years? And I'm sitting there in the corner and I'm thinking, you guys are a bunch of liars. And I got this same smile that I have on my face today on my face, because that's what I did. That's probably what earned me a seat in recovery. I will zip it up and I will put on a pretty face, and I will not let you know what I'm thinking. And when you start doing that from the time that you're young, when you stifle your feelings, your thoughts, your emotions, there comes a time when you're going to need some kind of crutch to make that work for you anymore. And if the crutch isn't a therapist, if the crutch isn't some kind of a group, whether it's a church group or a youth group or whatever, that's going to help you to open up, then that crutch is going to be something that helps you keep that lid on until it doesn't. So I want to think back. I've been thinking back a lot about recovery and when I came in when I was young, and some of the experiences that I had that were a little comical to me today, but maybe not so much in the moment. So you come in and you have this way of thinking and everything is new and different. One of the things is, wherever you choose your recovery, everything is a little bit different, but at its core, it's all the same. We need to talk about things in order to get things out on the table so that you can live a different life and gain some tools to do that. So I'm in these rooms and I'm hearing these people and they're talking about tools, but nothing is making a whole lot of sense. And they give me material to read, and even that material doesn't make any sense. Basically, all I can understand is that I'm not supposed to drink. And if I continue to do what they tell me, I will not drink. And so that I can comprehend, and that I want, because my life outside of any of that recovery atmosphere is horrible. I'm living with an alcoholic who is still drinking for another 8 months after I get sober. But I don't know that timeline, so it is driving me nuts that I'm in this atmosphere where I'm trying to stop drinking and this person is still drinking. We have 4 children, 2 of which are so young that I can't leave them with that alcoholic when I go to anything in recovery, and so I take them. And you can judge that, you can look at that however you want, but I'll tell you this, if I'm a recovering person and I am taking my kids to an atmosphere where people are trying to better their lives, they are in a much better atmosphere than I could have left them in back at home. And there may be all these other alternatives, but at that time, in the small circle I was in, because alcohol had shrunk my family and friends circle to nothing, that was my recourse. And I don't apologize for that, because my girls know from the time they were young that a recovery atmosphere is a welcoming, friendly atmosphere. It is an atmosphere where maybe the people are a little rough around the edges, but at their core, they want good for each other. They want to help each other. They are there for each other because they can be for the first time in their life. And that is what they witnessed, and that is what they saw. And when and if they ever had a problem or they had a friend with a problem, they knew that was a safe atmosphere. They knew recovery in whatever way, shape, or form was going to be the way out of a dark hole, because that's what it was for their family. So anyways, I'm early on, and I'm actually making coffee at one of these meetings, and I'm making coffee and my girls are with me, and they have this tradition that if somebody celebrates a year sobriety, 2 years sobriety, they give them a cake. And so there is cake after cake coming at least once a month, sometimes twice a month, and people are having these anniversaries and sharing this celebration. And my girls, they're watching that because they're 4 and 5, and there's evening, and we're headed to the elevator after everything is over and cleaned up, and my daughter is just pissed, and she is like 5 years old, 6 years old, and I'm like, what is the matter? Please tell me what's the matter. I can tell how angry you are. And she said, I'm 6 years old, I never had a beer, and I did not get a cake. And, in her little head, thank God, she wasn't one of those zip it up, not tell you what I'm thinking. She was going to tell me how she felt and what was going on in her head. And she was mad that she was going to those meetings every week and nobody gave her a cake on her birthday, and she hadn't never drank a beer. So I tell one of the people that is a regular at that meeting, and the next week they had a cake for my daughter, and they celebrated her 6 years with no beers at that recovery meeting. So I was won over pretty quickly with the welcoming atmosphere. I can't say that I was comfortable with all of the growth and the change. I fought everything. I used to say, if you wanted a poster child for what not to do, if you're trying to change your life and put down a drink, I'd be your girl back then. But today I look at it and I just think, I had so much that was blinding my ability to see the truth that it took me a little bit longer to crawl out from under that blanket of denial. And part of it was because I was living with an alcoholic, and I'm not making excuses, but when you have another drinker, and I hid so much of my drinking like some women do, the ability to see the truth about what was going on was very hazy. And so I would be in, this meeting atmosphere, and they would be giving me this information that was for Cathy. And I'd be thinking, he needs to hear this. I need to tell him this. I need to get him here so he can hear this. And my obsession when I put down the drink was getting that other person to recovery. And so if you know anybody that's in that situation, one, patience is helpful, but also the cold, hard truth was pretty much what kicked me off of that platform and got me to look at myself and take care of myself. When people told me the cold, hard truth and it kind of prickled, or the hairs on my neck stood up, I knew that there was some truth in it because it pissed me off. And those are marked times in my recovery where I changed. And a lot of times we don't want to hear the truth. We don't want somebody to make us angry. And if you're like me, if ego is the biggest block between you and a healthy life, as it was for me, then those are the people that I need more of in my life. I can remember early in recovery, I would cry every time I talked. And that was a little surprising for me because I was pretty much of a talker. I didn't always know what I was talking about, but I had no problem putting words out there. And so when it came, a chance to talk in recovery and people were sharing their insides and not their outsides, I always broke down into tears for like the first 6 months. And I recall at different times when I could get past that, when maybe I would just like frame up something I was gonna say just because I knew it sounded good, or I thought it sounded good, or I'd heard somebody say it somewhere else. When I would do that, I would be like, now I nailed it. So I had one of those nights, and I was pretty proud of myself for whatever I said that wasn't from here, it was from out there. And a woman came up to me afterwards and she said, geez, Cathy, I really appreciated what you said tonight in the meeting. And of course, with the ego that I had, I still have, I said, really? Why? Why, Betty? And she said, because it reminded me of how sick I was when I came to the program. And so I had another moment where somebody kind of halted me right where I was and said, I see you for what you are, and not in a bad way, but for what you are trying to be when you're not there yet. And I had a lot of that. I had that in my life full circle at 27, trying to be a mom when I didn't know how to be a mom, trying to be a wife when I had no idea how to be a wife, because I had stunted my growth and my learning from the time I started pouring alcohol on every problem instead of working through those problems to the solution, to the answer, to the understanding of why I was having the difficulty in the first place. So why would it be any different when I had to tell you about me on the inside? How would I know how to do that so early on? And so it came, very obvious to me when I am coaching somebody, when I am mentoring somebody, that saying something is so important. Whatever group you're in, to let them know you just a little bit at a time. If you want to be a part of a group, being a part of a group is giving a little. giving a little of yourself, letting them in just a little bit at a time. And sometimes because we've been so hurt, because we're so broken, we don't trust anybody with anything. And that's why a lot of times you'll have a mentor or a coach, and I'm one-on-one with that person, and I can share the stuff because I built that trust with that one woman. And then yet when I'm in a group of people, I will let out bits and pieces, not my whole bare soul, but I will let out bits and pieces to allow people to know me so that we continue to grow this bond of you can trust me, I can trust you, and we can grow together. And I will tell you the truth, and you can tell me the truth on this level of trying to help each other to get past some of the barriers that, if we don't break down, can take us back to a drink. So early on, I'm thinking, nobody has that amount of time. They can't have that amount of time. And then I start to get that amount of time, and I realize, oh my gosh, there's probably people thinking I'm a liar because now I have 1 year, now I have 2 years, now I have 5 years. And that seems incredible to the new person, that anybody can go 1 year without a drink. And that was incredible to me when I got 1 month clean and sober. When I was marking it off on a calendar 1 day at a time, and then you switch the month, the old calendar on the wall back in the 80s, then you switch the month again, and you switch the month again, and you're like, could it really happen? Could I really go a year without drinking? And that became the goal. And what is really interesting to me is sometimes you get 30 years, you get 35 years, and that sounds crazy, and it really is crazy. It even sounds crazy to the person who has achieved that goal. But those things those years mean something. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying I don't really, really respect, appreciate, and am grateful for my sobriety. But nothing meant as much as that 60 days. Nothing meant as much as that year. Because it was at that time that I realized there was something bigger than me that was making my life turn around. So, Cathy McLeish just talking about addiction, talking about the phases of recovery, the thinking that we still take with us even though we put down a drink, how it can be in the beginning, how it can be all the way through the rest of recovery, and how we can be victorious with the tools that we gain to live a better life. Thanks.